Forbes Books presents The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani, highlighting the pioneers that reimagined possibilities and reimagined businesses. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and Gerry and I are thrilled to be joined today by a visionary leader and renowned expert in the technology and services industry. JB Wood is the president of the Technology and Services Industry Association, aka TSIA, the world's leading research organization that helps tech companies achieve profitable growth and solve their top businesses' challenges. JB has over 25 years of experience helping B2B tech companies, and he is a frequent industry speaker and prolific author of several bestsellers, including his latest, Digital Hesitation: Why B2B Companies Aren't Reaching Their Full Potential. JB, welcome to the Great Digital Transformation.
Hey, Joe, thank you.
And so this is a bit of a reunion, JB, because your company and Gerry's worked together many, many years ago. So what are your memories of working with OSF back in the day, JB?
Oh, man. Well, that was a while ago. And the people have only gotten smarter and better looking since then. So
I was talking to Joe about this. Like many years ago, we were working with Greg to set up your Salesforce Customer 360 operations back, 10 years ago or something.
Yeah, right, exactly.
More than that.
Exactly.
We are coming full circle on this one.
That's great.
Well, that's awesome. Well, so let's step back a little bit and talk about your pursuit in this career in technology and services industry. What led you this way? Because what you do is pretty impactful, but it's not something a 5-year-old says, one day I want to run TSIA. What led you to this point in your life?
Well, it's funny because the short answer is money, but there's a little bit longer. There's a little bit longer answer, which is when I was a senior in college, I was the editor of the college newspaper, and I basically the last several months didn't have a lot to do. And the company who printed the college newspaper, the guy had developed a piece of software with a local college professor. And he said, JB, why don't you go see if you can sell this to other printing companies? And in 4 months, in 1982, I made about $60,000. And so I was going to go be a lawyer. And I looked up what first-year lawyers made, which was like $17,500. And so I'm like, let me see. I can either go back to school and become a lawyer and come out and make 20 grand, or I can go do this thing called software and make, 80 grand, right out of college. So that changed everything. And I've been in this industry, been through every major wave of technology since the sort of mid-range mini computers of the day, and had a tremendous opportunity to work with some of the biggest companies, some of the top executives in the history of the industry. And TSIA just pulled it all together in such an amazing way because we have this vantage point that really nobody else in the world has, because of this network of all these hundreds of companies that are part of the TSIA community.
Awesome. And before we get into a digital transformation, give us a little thumbnail on TSIA. Obviously, Gerry's fully aware of it, but for the uninitiated, give us a little background on TSIA.
So we're an industry association, but really we're a research institute. And so we're under non-disclosure with basically the several hundred largest tech and industrial companies in the world. And they agree to give us non-public data about their business practices in a variety of areas and the results that they get, right? Not just the public data that that shows up in their quarterly reports, but actual operating data, right? And then we have data scientists and industry experts who are, mining all that data, and AI and everything else, and trying to find simple patterns, what works, what doesn't, what results are possible. How do you optimize specific business processes? How do you optimize organizational structures? How do you optimize pricing models? And then we feed that back. So any one company, again, a Cisco or a Microsoft or, a Google, we can say, hey, here's how you're doing things today. These things are sort of world class. These things over here could use improvement. And then here are the best practices that you should implement, and these are the results you should expect to get. So it's an incredible library of business processes, best practices, and results. And we think it's unique in the world.
Gerry, sounds pretty legit, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, of course, we know the association, and we've been quite interested into what you are doing. I'm especially interested in the way you benchmark different best practices between companies, especially in the digital transformation area. That's interesting work that you are doing, and in what you are writing in your book about digital hesitation and this kind of like gap in, especially for B2B companies, in adopting more of digital. I've seen this also a lot with some of our customers, whereby they kind of hesitate. They, because it's really, it's what I call digitization instead of digital transformation. Many companies, they simply take a process, one, two, three, four, and then they digitize it. Like they put it in a Excel or SAP or whatever, but they do not rethink the business process. They do not
Right.
seize the opportunity that technology is providing to actually do it in a different way, in a significant different way, to reimagine their business processes. And I think that there has something to do with the hesitation in the way they think about this. And in my book, I'm trying to push people to dream a little bit more and kind of step back and look around and see what the technology can enable.
Yeah, Gerry, you're right. I mean, I remember, in the 70s and the 80s, and even I would say the early 90s in business in general, the B2C companies always looked up to the B2B companies. Back then it was IBM, and the B2C companies always felt like the B2B companies were the ones that had the big budgets, and they had the big sales force, and they were the leaders, and they were the innovators. And then, when the cloud came along, it was the B2C companies who were really the first to digitally transform. I mean, again, we'll all always credit Amazon for opening everybody's eyes to the fact that you didn't need bricks and mortar to sell, books, right? Or what? And then we all know that story. But I mean, when we were all kids, we talked to a salesperson to buy everything. If we wanted underwear, we went down to the department store, and there was a salesperson in the underwear department, right? And if you had said back then, hey, there's going to be a chance to sell for people to go on a computer and buy underwear, those people would have said that's not possible. Right?
Yeah.
That's never going to happen, right? Same thing with buying cars. Car salesmen would say that's never going to happen, right? And so the B2C companies, especially those born in the cloud, they really became the leaders. They went from the followers to the leaders. They jumped over B2B companies. And to your point, Gerry, these B2B companies are really struggling in their digital transformations, quite frankly, because they can't let loose, as you said, rethink their business. They've got a big sales force. They've got all these traditional labor-based, engagement models. And they're struggling to rethink and simplify their business, like many of the B2C companies have. And if you look at, the biggest disruptor in B2B tech, which, is Amazon, right? And so Amazon's gone from selling books all the way through the B2C chain, and then have moved into the B2B chain with Amazon Web Services, and brought a lot of that B2C mentality to this, and began to take share and build markets in ways that the traditional B2B companies, who had been incumbents in some of these computing spaces for years, had never been able to do. So it is really a unique set of challenges for B2B companies to digitally transform.
Yeah, especially the way you can capture data nowadays and the way you can look at data. We are still operating too much in silos, and we are not looking at the data from on the entire journey. There's a lot of talk about saving money, improving margins because of the current economy and everything, but I'm not really seeing enough of a good, solid, healthy understanding of how the data flows in the company. How should we look at it? How should we, even in the buying process, like you have a supply chain, you buy inventory from wherever, you bring it over to your market and you sell it, but you don't really connect it with what your customers want. Sometimes it's you don't know what your customers want. It's and that's not connected with the supply chain, and it's not connected with the product design. Like there are many products now where if you want as a simple user of the product to provide feedback about the product, to say, hey, this is a cool feature, I would like it in some of your other products, you cannot do it today. And it's not like a groundbreaking innovation to capture data here and make sure that this goes back to the product design and inventory and supply chain. It's really not brain surgery.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, look, B2B companies in general, in their hearts, have always been product companies, right?
Yeah.
They've always thought about the feature and the function and the, that is going to be how we innovate in the marketplace, right? And those products do have value for customers, right? Those customers can enjoy value from the product. Getting to value, if you're a B2B customer, getting to that value can be hell.
Yeah.
Navigating the sales process, the B2B complex sales process, if it's capital equipment or software, there's the implementation process and employee training and all of these things that customers have got to go through to get to the point where they can enjoy the value of the product. And that customer experience is, I mean, I if you just look at the financials of any major B2B company, and you look at how much money they spend in labor just around navigating the complexity of the customer experience, right? That's arguably what a sales force is there to do. A sales force is there to help that prospective buyer navigate the complexity of doing business with this company. And companies spend 30 or 35 or 40% of their total revenue on salespeople. And most of what those salespeople do is to then turn inward and navigate the complexity, whether it's we have 25,000 SKUs that the customer could buy from, right? Or, who's going to be the consultant on the job, or, what product experts do I need to bring in to explain the value, how our value fits in this particular client's industry. There's just so much complexity that legacy B2B companies have built up because they didn't engineer for the customer experience. They engineered product features, and everything grew out of that, that lack of attention to this process.
You're very right to when you are talking about this shift between being a product centric company towards being a customer centric company. We see this in retail. We have seen it in retail a lot, where the shift went from being a company being having a transaction at the center. It was all about selling an item, towards more about what our customers want, to put the customer in the center of it. And we see this more and more across the industries. Is everything is becoming more customer centric, customer driven, and everything else has to align with this. And the challenge is that sometimes the technology that these companies have, they are not really aligned with this, because when you are looking at an ERP, the ERPs are really about the product, are really about the supply chain and how this product gets to the store or that gets to whatever distribution channel. But it's not about capturing customer data and how the customer is interacting with the company.
This most recent book that we've got out called Digital Hesitation, it really talks to a couple things. One is that, as you said, that was not the priority, right? The priority was how much did we spend on R&D around the features and functions of the product, not how did we engineer and simplify and digitize the customer journey to that value, right?
Yeah.
And, again, you could argue that really the entire pre-sales process, as an example, is simply a matter of questions and answers. The prospect has questions and they need answers. The company, the vendor, has questions about the customer, right? What do you need? What are your priorities? Who will be involved, right? It is a macro version of a consumer purchase, right? When you buy anything in your life, you have questions. And when you get enough answers, you feel confident to hit the buy button. And buying big, complex B2B solutions at some level is no different. It is simply a matter of understanding what questions the customers have and engineering an easy path to those answers for them. And vice versa, understanding what you need to know about the customer and creating an easy path for that customer to tell you, to give you the information you need to know to do business with them. And I would submit to you, I mean, I'm sure on, other podcasts that, it's come up a million times, every industry is redefining itself as a software driven industry. Right. And so, some of
this is Gerry's favorite topic, JB.
Yeah,
so
right.
You got
Exactly.
right into it, yep.
So, I mean, some of the biggest hardware manufacturing companies in the world, companies that, they love to see machines building machines, right? And now all of a sudden we're starting to say, hey, look, the difference, right? The value can be in this software layer, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. And increasingly AI is, feeding into this frenzy. But I will also tell you, software has never been cheaper or easier or faster to build than it is today. So if you're saying, a lot of the value is moving to software and building software is cheaper, easier, and faster than it's ever been before, then you start to think about how long will my, quote, software features at a competitive differentiation level last? And is it, in fact, if products are going to commoditize more quickly, right, is it going to be a situation where my customer experience, right, that companies trust my brand, I'm easy to do business with, we take care of these customers, we deliver results for those customers, that becomes the defining characteristic of market share. Because it's only a matter of time if somebody comes out with a new software feature that everybody else is going to have that feature fairly quickly. So I think it's causing, again, if you look at the rise of Amazon Web Services in an industry that had very dominant players like IBM and HP and, companies who really never felt they could be disrupted, being really disrupted by what is at the end of the day a better B2B customer experience. I think people are starting to wake up to the idea that part of that needs to be engineered and built just like their product features do.
Yeah, and also thinking about, you mentioned value. This is a very interesting topic for me, because value is a little bit subjective. It's not necessarily there is a direct value in the features of a product, but also there is value around it, like the services that you can add, and I've seen many companies do not understand what is valuable for their customers. They don't get it, and they are not looking at it in the right way. They don't have, like, every brand has ambassadors. It has customers that are really passionate about the brand, that are really into it, and I've seen many companies that do not have a kind of a channel set up to talk to these people, to talk to these brand ambassadors, to understand, okay, what is valuable, what is not valuable, how can we augment the value, because this can help also increase the value of the product, and kind of move higher up in the value chain. there is so much more that can be done here to properly understand what is valuable for my customers and how do they interact with me, and how can I serve them better for that matter.
Yeah, I remember in 2004 or five, I was looking at some data we'd collected about software update rates. And this was, really before, it was still when on-premise software was dominant in the business world. And all the big B2B software companies would come out with their annual update, their annual software maintenance release, right? And we were watching the percentage of their customers who were actually installing the upgrade and implementing the upgrade go down and down and down and down and down. And in 2004, I remember drawing a picture which went on to get a lot of attention, called the consumption gap. And that drawing basically said, hey, I think we have a problem where our software developers are spinning up new capabilities in our solutions faster than the customers are onboarding them. So we have a growing gap between the value proposition that we could be delivering versus the value proposition that our customers are actually receiving, right? And I remember standing up at the front on the main stage of one of our conferences, and there were thousands of tech executives out there. And I put this picture up and I said, hey, everybody, I think we got a problem. And the general reaction of the industry was, nah, that's not a problem, because they're consuming enough value that they're going to stay on maintenance. They're not going to go off the annual maintenance contract. And that's all I care about, whether they're getting this much more value or that much more value. And so literally it was like value realization was not a thing. You just needed enough stickiness to make sure that company was not going to, uninstall your products, right? Boy, did the cloud change that, right? Now we are 100% fixated on adoption. We are 100% fixated on making sure that each individual company is doing what it takes. And sometimes it means those individual customers have got to adapt their old business processes to conform to the way the software works, right? To get to that higher level of value. But now this is the discussion in the industry. So we've gone in 20 years from, it's not that important, to driving value, right? And again, as B2B companies, figuring out how to simplify that path to value, get the complexities out of the way. That's what digital transformation is all about. And again, it breaks a lot of glass, right? Most companies are afraid of their sales force. They don't want to cause disruption in the things that generate current revenue by building capabilities that may disintermediate some of the needs for those, right? And so, there is always this trade-off, right? I have these organizations, they're people I know, they have their ways of doing business. They operate as silos, like you said about the data. The problem is sales has its data. Services has its data. Customer success has its data, and it goes on and on and on. And really, we show up for customers like a series of companies under one brand. And if I'm a customer, I got to navigate through every single silo, and I'm going to have different experiences, and I'm going to have to answer the same question 5 times because different people are going to ask it because they didn't see my answer the first time. We're going to look back on this and go, my God, what were we thinking? But we got a long way to go from where we are today and where we're going to be in 20 years.
Let's talk about best practices and frameworks, JB, and these B2B tech companies you work with. What are some of the things you're seeing that works? Like in terms of putting that plan together and then putting it in action that actually works, and you're seeing results. We're seeing the value that Gerry's talking about. We're seeing the B2B being able to connect from B2B. What are you seeing on the ground?
Well, one of the most important, I would say, frameworks or sort of, I would just call sort of a breakthrough in our thinking was, in the old sort of product days where customers bought assets. They paid up front to buy an asset. Could be a hardware asset, could be a software asset, and then they owned it, right? And the primary responsibility for getting value out of that was up to them. So they had their IT department or their, engineering departments, if it was a big manufacturing company, and they had to really extract the value out of these assets. So now we're increasingly moving to service-based business models in B2B. And in a service-based business model, again, back to the Amazon AWS analogy, all a contract is a right to begin to serve. That's all it is, right? You don't have to pay Amazon a lot of money up front. Now, they'd love for you to do that, and they'll give you incentives to do that. But you can begin to do business with Amazon with no upfront payment, and then they will bill you based on how much you use, right? So we started to think about capital transactions as the primary sort of how do we organize, what do we drive towards. Now we're starting to think about a life cycle, right? Land, adopt, expand, renew, right? And then adopt, expand, renew, and then adopt, expand, renew. And basically it is about earning revenue, growing revenue over a substantial period of time by getting better and better and better at serving customers. And that, that has caused us to do, I think, some very, very, very healthy things that we didn't do before. So I'll give you a simple example. We asked our research team what data should be captured in a perfect pre-sale cycles. What data about a customer would be captured so that all the post-installation activities would run smoother, right? And I kind of thought we were going to get back, 15, 18, 20 pieces of information. Our researchers sent back something north of 135 pieces of data that the post-sales organizations wish was being collected in the pre-sales process, right? Wow. And so you say, my God, that forces us, this life cycle, earning revenue over an extended period of time and making sure that we're doing a good job of driving systematic adoption, value realization, expansion, renewal, changes how we think about the sales cycle, right? And so, that life cycle model is really causing companies to view what happens in pre-sales in a way that is super healthy for both them and for the customer, and has always been an opportunity on the table. That's always been there to go do, but it wasn't until our B2B revenue models moved into as a service that we actually said, okay, that framework dictates different practices in pre-sales, integration of systems that we never had before, pooling the post-implementation teams up into pre-sales, right? Things we never used to do. That one life cycle layer framework, which we've now updated to call it A player, which is analytics, placement, land, adopt, expand, renew, right? Because there is this massive data component to the customer experience and to digital transformation. But that framework has really helped not just tech companies, but some of the biggest industrial companies on the planet to rethink their customer engagement models.
The sales cycle is transforming into kind of a super adoption cycle. Like it's a continuous adoption cycle, continuous interaction between everybody on their journey to adopt and provide more and more value as they adopt the products and services and interact with each other.
Imagine if you went to go see a doctor and the doctor never asked how you were feeling, or what's wrong, or, what are your symptoms? That is really at its core, what is digital transformation? Digital transformation is about having just the right data, not too little, and quite honestly, not too much, just the right data to optimize the customer journey. That's really what, and the more you can simplify, the more that you can, again, take going from, 25,000 SKUs to 200 SKUs, right? Going from, complex customized implementations to more standard off the shelf offers, right? All of those things mean that you need less information, right? But you can't miss key things. And as you go through this journey of saying, what do I really need to know, right? And then where in the customer lifestyle can I pick that up most easily, right? And now we've got AI, which is both going to make, information more consumable, like public information about our prospects, about our customers, right? We're going to have access to new insights about our customers that needs to be brought into the process. And we're also going to be able to use AI to apply to the data we're collecting and compare all of our customers to better understand what practices are working. We're doing the same thing across the industry. We apply AI to these big data sets across multiple companies to say, hey, what are the right, onboarding tactics, or the right, price setting maneuvers, or whatever it may be. But, I'm hopeful that a lot of hype on AI lately, for God's sake. I am hopeful that AI, that one of its early wins is to help simplify the B2B life cycle, right? And because it has the potential to do that. We've got tons of data, and we've let it live in these silos. We've never tasked it with the right set of tasks. And AI is a chance to make rapid advancement on all those things.
It's funny. We started this conversation, JB, talking about your career and how long you've been doing it. And I'd love to get your take as we close things off here. You've seen everything from the rise of the semiconductor to search to social media and now AI. Does AI feel like deja vu with all those other disruptions? Or does this seem bigger to you than all those other disruptors that we've seen along the way over the last 30, 40 years of technology? What's your take on it? Because you've lived it. So now I want to know what you're thinking right now.
I can tell you exactly where I was, Joe, the first time I ever heard about this thing called the World Wide Web. And I was sitting in a hotel conference room in Venice, Italy, with Larry Ellison and the entire leadership staff of Oracle. And this guy stood up and he said, there's this thing called the World Wide Web. And we all went, ooh, ooh, right? And we had no idea how transformative that was going to be. AI feels like that to me in the sense that there's a lot of early oohing and awing, but it's going to go some places faster than others, right? Just like I mentioned, B2C companies adopted the web as a customer engagement, platform, a route to market at a much faster rate than B2B companies did. B2B companies put their brochures up on the World Wide Web. That was all they did, right? And so, AI is going to speed up a lot of new generational capabilities, but I don't have a lot of the same fears of existential risk to humanity about AI. And I think it's another wave, and it's going to be a super, super valuable wave. But, anybody who says that they can see the clear path to how this is going to unfold hasn't been around through some of those other waves.
I don't think of it as a hype right now. Today, this feels like, for me, ChatGPT feels much more like a kind of AI becoming a little bit more mainstream, because there has been a lot of AI talk about AI since many years now. And
Yep.
we've been working on this AI enabling productivity, higher productivity, since more than 2 years now. We developed some tools and everything. Our developers have become 10 to 20% more productive, better consistency, less defects, many more tickets closed. And is just providing an assistant. It's not. I don't think about AI as being replacing people, but definitely assisting people to do their job better. For sure, it's gonna have a huge impact.
Yeah, I
It's
agree
gonna
with you, Gerry. And
transform.
my one prediction I will make is I think one of the most important things that Chat GPT did is it popularized in business. It popularized this notion that there are learning models, right? That
Yeah.
you can take content and you can apply models to that content that then result in this new layer of interface, right? This new smarter layer. And people started to, I think, say, oh, maybe we could do that. We've got this data set over there and this data set over there. Maybe we could take those two data sets and we can teach, right, these models how to go do it. And so people started, I think the rate of innovation and testing around different uses of AI went up because Chat GPT became a very well understood, how they did what they did is going to be super influential.
ChatGPT was kind of a light bulb
Right.
moment, kind of an aha moment when it's like people started realizing, hey, this can actually do something real
Exactly.
for me. It's not some hype or anything.
Exactly.
So
Well, that's awesome. Well, JB, this has been great. Before we let you go, Digital Hesitation, your book, your last one that you wrote, who's it for? Who should read it?
I think every B2B company, in the world should be reading this. And really, we have a whole chapter in there on the role of the board as an example in digital transformation, right? Because there are risks. You do have to break silos. You do have to take on systems and people and partners and whatever. And the board has to understand that these transformations are not optional. Customers will leave these companies, right? They will leave these companies if they don't reinvent themselves. And if the board doesn't understand that, then it's going to be very difficult for the leadership team to do what they need to do, and so forth and so on down the line. So this is not a book for IT people, right? This is a book for IT people and the C-suite and the boards to understand really what they're up against, the big rocks they got to move in this journey, and why they can't continue to hesitate.
Awesome. His name is JB Wood, President and CEO of TSIA and the author of Digital Hesitation, Why B2B Companies Aren't Reaching Their Full Potential. JB, thanks so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Gerry.
thank you, JB.
This has been The Great Digital Transformation with Gerard Zatvani. To participate in the conversation, go to gerardzatvani.com. The Great Digital Transformation is a production of Forbes Books.